Voice of Russia, welcome to another edition of Music and Musicians, hosted by me, Svetlana Yakimenko. I don't think it would be a mistake if I were to surmise that most of you have experienced something of the sort when you listened to music of a seemingly entirely foreign to you people, and yet were amazed to sense a certain proximity, as though you were closely related to those voices. They were your distant ancestors. And it was at instances like that the thought occurred to you: the world is uniform in its arch-ancestry. A thought that invariably heightens emotions. Well, in today's program, we'll offer you an opportunity to experience these emotions yet again. Moscow Conservatory hosted a unique symposium that assembled famous scientists and musicians from France, Japan, Vietnam, Iran, Latvia, Belarus and Russia, and it was entitled Sound Archetypes of Indo-European Affinity. For the amateur, it might sound a bit too dauntingly learned. Well, it's true, the event assembled some acclaimed scientific minds. But even for the scientifically uninitiated, there was a great deal of interest at the symposium. We were offered an opportunity to witness sound and visual corroboration of the seemingly impossible, inconceivable notion that all of mankind originally shares the same ancestral roots, spiritual and cultural. At the start of the symposium, as its guests were acquainting themselves with the Grand Hall of the Conservatory, our very own Olga Shapovalova made an improvised recording. Together with the highly esteemed guest, one of the leading ethnomusicologists of the world, Tran Quang Hai, she was descending the stately stairway of this remarkably beautiful hall, and the maestro, who wields practically all vocal styles of the world, chose to sing for her a bit.
I sing like the Tuva in Mongolia.
Oh, natural singing.
You know that, like the Hosein.
Hosein.
You know him?
Yeah.
I sing like the Hosein, for example. You can hear.
The International Symposium, Sound Archetypes of Indo-European Affinity, in today's program, Music and Musicians. First, we set off to a concert of Iranian musicians, Hosein Nourshargh and the ensemble Ghamar, Grand Hall of Moscow Conservatory, a concert that was entitled More. The world always has a continuation. We can never say, that's all of it. Then the infinite lifeline would never be broken off. Ancient instruments. Kamancha, with its poignant, heart-rending sound. The Iranian 72-string santur, reputed to be the predecessor of the European piano. Chants with a history going back thousands of years. Avazi.
آشفته دلی دارم مفتونه نوای تو خونین جگری دارم خونین جگری دارم از ناله نای تو سرگشته به هر سوی آرم به خدا روی شاید اثری جویم از تو ز خدای تو امان آی حبیب ده جانم خدا امان وای
Iranian musicians Hosein Nourshargh and the ensemble Ghamar in Moscow. And so the International Symposium Sound Archetypes of Indo-European Affinity, hosted by the World Music Center at Moscow Conservatory. Are there any world analogues to this unique, as we believe, event? We address the question to the center's scientific supervisor, Margarita Karatigina.
Но мне подобных идей не попадалось.
I do not recall coming across anything like this in the press or in the lists of themes at international conferences or symposiums. For Moscow Conservatory, this theme is natural. Alongside studies of European music, we have long been devoting time to musical Iranian, Indological studies. We analyze the cultures of diverse peoples. We have reached the conclusion that the hour has dawned for us to make certain generalizations.
Люди в какой-то степени как деревья. Им важно понимать.
People are like trees. They need to be aware of their roots. On the one hand, the fact that Indo-Europeans have a certain common ancestry might seem mythological. And yet, on the other hand, as you listen to the music, read the books, you become increasingly aware of this. Yet there are no formulated theories or conclusions.
Тем более, очень сбивает с пути политика.
Politics, religious discord tend to divert one from this path of affinity. They do not allow us to look towards the profound antiquity. Christianity, Islam, Buddhism are all a relatively new phase in mankind's spiritual self-consciousness. But that does not mean there was no spirituality before. To believe, in our day and age, that before that came total obscurity, ignorance, oblivion, is nothing if not naive.
Как бы то ни было, конкретно опыт Московской консерватории, конкретно опыт.
In any case, we felt compelled to dwell on affinity of cultures that evolved in the graphic range of the Indo-European peoples. Up until now, the theme was actively discussed by linguists, and they were able to determine the affinity. However, as far as sound or musical affinity, we thought we might look into that at our symposium. Let me specify, Indo-European affinity in this case is not some scientific term. Other peoples also inhabited the area where Indo-European peoples lived, and their cultures and languages interacted most intensively, mutually impacting one another. We focused on this reciprocal influence at our symposium.
Тут действительно каждый участник не просто попал.
Each one of the participants was chosen. The result, a kind of congress of the elected. There are scientists and musicians we've long been collaborating with, and there are new experts, encounters with whom were a revelation for us. Iranian scientists Hamid Reza Ardalan and Mohammad Reza Darvishi.
فروض میاد когда происходит понижение اسم مقام رو میگه он называет имя مقام بنابراین ما با یک حجم زیادی از ترنم مواجه میشیم то есть мы с вами сталкиваемся с большим количеством ترنمов که موقع فروض когда происходит понижение тона فقط نام مقام
A Vietnamese by origin residing in Paris, Tran Quang Hai, who's an expert in a great diversity of world cultures. Russian Parisian Yegor Reznikoff, familiar with the secrets of early Christian singing. An expert on Iranian music from Japan, Gyunhit Tsuge.
Finally, Har Mohre concert trumpet, played by my house, many places actually.
A whole group of Indologists, Yelena Grokhovik from Belarus and Russia's Tatyana Kartashova.
Поэтому в том числе в Индии в ранг классической музыки также причислены вокальные жанры, которые основаны на лексических словах. Это тарана, тирват и многие другие.
All the way from Latvia, Sergei Akash Antsupov and Ludmila Zhirkova.
Сергей Анцупов, можно сказать, питомец Московской консерватории, хотя он никогда здесь не учился.
One could refer to Sergei as an alumnus of Moscow Conservatory, although he never studied there. In the late 70s, this person appeared in Moscow and came to Giovanni Mikhailov, who at the time had just founded the trend Musical Cultures of the World. With him were musicians from Riga and Vilnius, and they sought help in studying Indian music, which they were hugely interested in. Giovanni Mikhailov helped them make the acquaintance of some outstanding Indian musicians. Presently, Sergei heads the Saraswati school he founded in Riga. We are telling you about the unique international symposium, Sound Archetypes of Indo-European Affinity. The ideologist behind the project, scientific supervisor of the World Music Center at Moscow Conservatory, Margarita Karatigina, I believe, is best equipped to tell us what exactly are these sound archetypes.
По каким-то причинам наши предки испытывали потребность в том, чтобы
Our distant ancestors experienced a need to interpret a certain list of typical psycho-emotional states of their collective consciousness or even subconsciousness. Out of this common torrent, many thousands of years ago, they began singling out the most important.
Дали название этим состояниям, выстроили из них иерархию.
They gave these states and conditions names and even assembled something of a hierarchy. They correlated and pieced together different elements of the world, including audio ones. In other words, to put it simply, they realized that the state of grief or joy or other states have a specific sound expression. That is how specific systems emerged, which in our language are called lad. The Europeans refer to as mode. In other cultures, dastkgah, makam, raga. This is a specifically Indo-European feature which is uniform for all of our peoples.
Что такое архетипы? Это некие условные конструкции, которые
What is an archetype? Certain relative structures in the plane of collective subconsciousness. We may not realize their existence, but they guide our impressions and our experiences. We perceive them as an absolute givenness. We hear something, sense something, and we are already have a certain preset attitude towards it, since it is in effect embedded in our genes. When we begin to correlate and compare different cultures and understand how these very models are so similar, it never fails to stun everyone. At the Moscow Symposium, a scientist from Belarus, Yelena Gorokhovik, made an amazing report. I am an Indologist in my principal profession. However, working on a report on profound links between Belarusian ancient music and original roots of Indo-European culture was for me quite fascinating and natural too. I can sense this connection from within. Presently in Belarus, we have many people conducting extensive research in this direction. Thus, linguists have proven that Sanskrit and the Belarusian language originate from one and the same mother tongue, and this dates to about the 3rd millennium BC. In Belarus, there are a great many ancient culture signs and symbols, and they are common for all Indo-European peoples. Here is another example. Solar symbols in folk embroidery, in the traditional decor of a home. Even on the hand towels, which we call ruchnik, you will find these ancient symbols, while you can find these towels in practically every Belarusian household. Very widespread to this day are sun songs, also hailing back from those ancient times. The cult of the sun emerged in the Neolithic age.
Циркуляция идей по всей обширной территории Евразии.
Circulation of ideas on the vast territory of Eurasia was remarkably intense.
Впечатление, что люди летали раньше, если не на самолетах, то на самолетах-коврах.
The impression was as if people in ancient times got around, if not on planes, then on flying carpets. Common culture objects, notions of what and how could be used to extract sound, can be found in areas which seem a vast distance apart. You cannot but marvel at how people manage to convey this information to one another. Perhaps via telepathy? We cannot entirely rule that out. Today's world is very noisy, while that ancient environment was to a greater degree ready to detect and perceive fine energies. You can treat Margarita Karatigina's premises as you will, but get ready for more powerful impressions. We're setting up for a concert of the already familiar to you Parisian Vietnamese, Tran Quang Hai.
The piece is just to introduce you to the mode.
Let me once again recall Margarita Karatigina's notion regarding our ancestors' special methods of conveying information. In order to understand regularities and common factors of early Christian music, Russian Parisian Yegor Reznikoff traveled the world several times. He can best explain everything himself, but first, listen to this miracle, early Christian chants. Yegor Reznikoff.
When we have manuscripts, the most ancient we have of the Western tradition are from the 9th century. And we know that what was notated in pneumatic notation was already fixed in the 8th century. But we know also that what was fixed under the Carolingian in the 8th century, the end of 8th century, was not created then. They all say that it came from fathers and so. And we have some evidence that these chants were created from the 4th century, so very early, 4th, 5th, 6th. I think no later, because if you see how Latin phonetics were treated, you understand that it was a very high ancient Latin Gallo-Roman culture. Now, the problem is we have the pneumatic notation, which is very precise, but it doesn't tell what was the way of singing. See, for instance, if you have an Indian raga, you notate it in modern Western notation, and you ask an opera singer to sing it. It would have nothing to do with raga. Therefore, the question is how we could understand the precise interval, the way of producing sounds, and so the timbre. And the only answer is to try to find whether there are some still oral traditions that are alive, that still practice this. This tradition was completely lost.
At all?
Completely, yes. It's a wrong understanding that it survived in monasteries. No, it was all restored in the end of the 19th century, and it was a restoration of people who had the piano education, the Western ordinary education in music, and they had absolutely no knowledge of ancient oral traditions. There were some learned people, scholars, who would say we cannot restore it without going to hear how the Greeks, the Byzantine tradition, you see, and how now still alive in at that time in Palestine, in Israel, how it was seen. Now, if we want to come to the problem in a modern way, the only way is to try to find related traditions that still have kept, this oral. Listen to the Eastern churches. I mean, in Iraq, in Iran, in Syria. Now, as you know, it's the hardest time for these traditions because the Christian traditions are murdered. And they have kept the ancient way of singing.
They preserve traditions, I guess.
The problem is that they know not so well now, or completely don't understand, the theory on which it was founded. Then, of course, there is an Iranian ancient tradition, I mean spiritual learning tradition. They have kept rather well their theory. And then we come to the Indian classical music. They have kept also many oral traditions, but also, the theory. So some people say, the monotheistic traditions, we understand the Jewish, the Islamic, but India, this is almost pagan. This has nothing to do. But it's wrong, because with India we have many roots. We have in the language the Indo-European languages, and also it's known that many aspects of the religious traditions are from the same origin.
Yegor Reznikoff, early Christian chants. And now let's turn to ancient Iranian music, the study of which was so important for a representative of the European tradition. Margarita Karatigina says,
Наверное, это самое главное энергетическое притяжение для всех было.
The arrival of Iranian musicians was the pivotal energy magnetism of our symposium. Attending were scientists of world renown who brought over folk musicians representing rare, ancient traditions. These are mankind's ancestral roots. Here is one of the performers, 96-year-old Hezer Gader Garmavi, who had difficulty buying a plane ticket. The airlines were hesitant to take on board so elderly an individual. He demonstrated for us ancient epic chants of the Kurds.
من داري بمر مقوي
The second performer, Beragozar Takhmasebyan, representing a very ancient Lak culture. We talked to ethnomusicologists from Iran, Hamid Reza Ardalan.
How could you assess the idea of this conference?
This conference gives me a new look to search Indo-European culture and deep essence of it. It is very important. The Russia Conservatoire, Tchaikovsky Conservatoire, is thinking about essence of voices in the Indo-European culture.
Do you feel some parallels between different cultures when you hear music?
Yes, sure. From India to Greek, we can find same cultures. And it is very natural thing because we are a big family in this era.
A unique symposium at Moscow Conservatory, Sound Archetypes in Indo-European Cultures. Culture has common ancient roots, as incredible as it might seem. Today's program was prepared by Olga Shapovalova, sound director Nadia Smirnova, and your host Svetlana Yakimenko, wishing you all the very best.